welcome to our podcast. My name is Margaret, and today we'll be discussing a couple of different types of interviewing. Joining us today is Amy, who has recently conducted a Skype interview as well as the interview in person. She'll be helping us to highlight both the pros and cons of each interview type and give us her personal recommendation on which form she believes is better. First of all, I want to make sure everyone understands the difference between the two forms of interviewing. The first is Skype. Skype is a program people use to communicate on the internet. It is similar to having a phone conversation, except that a camera is used so you can see the person you are talking to. A second form is an ordinary face-to-face interview. This is when you're physically in the same room as an interviewee, talking to them in person. Let's start talking about Skype. Amy, what are some of the benefits of using Skype as opposed to a face-to-face interview?
Well, Margaret, that's a great question. There are quite a few benefits to using Skype. The biggest is probably the fact that it allows you to connect to people globally. You can see the person you would normally only be able to talk to on the phone. Another benefit is that you can share documents and use software while you are talking to the person, so they can easily understand and follow along with what you are discussing.
Well, that's great. Sounds like it can really be used to bring people together without actually having to travel. It's almost like face-to-face, but without actually being there. But is there anything bad about using Skype?
Actually, yes, there are some drawbacks to using Skype, especially if it's used unethically.
Unethically? What do you mean by that? How is that possible?
Well, because Skype is on a computer using a camera, it's possible that the interviewer can videotape the interviewee without their consent. This isn't such a problem in a professional setting, but when using Skype for more personal business, this can be an issue. It has actually been quite a problem with younger users who may do or say things before thinking about the consequences of their actions.
So you're saying people may say things or behave inappropriately in the moment, not thinking that they may be recorded and this could be used later. I guess that could be a huge problem. What about communication? Does this affect our normal communication skills?
Yes, you led right into my next point. The skill of communicating personally is dying because technology is becoming so accessible. There are concerns that the younger generations will not be competent when having to actually talk to people face to face because they are accustomed to talking on a computer, phone, or other technological devices.
So that is one of the benefits of a face-to-face interview. Let's discuss some of those points.
That's exactly right, Margaret. There's no substitute for being able to talk to somebody in person. In fact, talking directly to somebody's face has many benefits. Another is the nonverbal communication. If you're looking at a computer screen, you may not be able to see the person as well, only their face. If you're in the same room, it's easier to pick up on body language. If they're getting upset or embarrassed by your questioning, it's important that you notice this and make them feel more comfortable. If they're on a computer screen across the world, it may not be obvious that they are upset, and it could lead to a rough interview.
I see. So being able to understand and read a person is important, and it is easier done when they are in the same room. But what if the point of the interview is to really dig deep, and it doesn't matter if they are uncomfortable? Is Skype just as convenient?
Actually, no, it isn't. It's easier to avoid questions and change the subject when you're on the other side of the world from somebody, or even just to log off. If you're physically in the same room as a person, there's more pressure to answer every question and actually respond honestly because it's harder to lie right to someone's face. It can also be easier to hold a person's attention. It's easier to focus on an interview when the person is right in front of you. There's less risk of being distracted by other computer programs or things happening on your end of the interview. Being in the same room as a person can result in a more honest interview with more information than Skype can provide.
So to recap, Skype is more convenient and allows for long-distance communication, but face-to-face can produce a more straightforward interview without the risk of being recorded without knowing. It is harder to hold it against you. I think that after hearing this information, that the face-to-face interviews may be a better choice. I feel that understanding and reading a person can come in very handy, that seeing the non-verbal communication can be almost as important as the verbal aspects of the communication. Is that correct?
That would also be my opinion, Margaret. I believe there's more focus on an interview when the person is right there with you. You are correct about the nonverbal. This is a huge part of communication, and if you are missing this, you may be missing an entire aspect of the conversation.
Well, Amy, we're out of time now. Thanks for stopping by. It was great to hear about the different types of interviews. Having opinions is wonderful. It may open opportunities to talking to new people, but it sounds like there will never be a substitute for face-to-face communication.